So I've spent 25 years doing the work that I do. I specialize in working with people convicted of violent crimes. So I have sat with many people who were convicted of serial murders, serial rapes. Like I've worked with people who've done horrific things. And by the time I sit down with people, it's not a matter of whether or not they did it. For most people, at the point where I'm interviewing them and working with them, they're trying to release some of the things that they've done. So they're very honest with me. So honest that if I'm being honest with you, there have been many times where when I've been driving home from work, I've wanted to physically throw up from hearing the things that I heard and recognizing the pain that exists. And these aren't stories that I would retell for clicks. I don't think this information needs to be out there. I don't think we need to put these kinds of ideas in other people's minds. But the reason I'm making this particular video is this. After learning, getting behind the eyes of people who have done horrific things, after learning about what they look for, I thought, how can I help you stay safe? And so there are, in the years that I've been doing this, two categories of people who are the easiest for people to manipulate. The first group of people who are the easiest for others to manipulate are those who have low self-esteem. If you have low self-esteem and you're looking for others to fill that esteem up, then you're a real target for people who are professional manipulators. So, in other words, if you don't feel good about your relationship or things that are going on in your life, and then someone comes along and says, "Listen, you're awesome, you're fantastic. I think you're the best." At first, you might convince yourself that you see through that person's motives, but what happens is over time, you start to believe what they're saying, and you allow them to fill up your esteem. So when you're struggling with low self-esteem, probably the most important thing you can do is to remind yourself that self-esteem comes from within. The more you work on your self-esteem, the less you'll need other people to fill it up. And probably the best way to work on self-esteem is through something called self-efficacy. Sounds fancy, but here's what the difference is. Self-esteem is about how you feel about yourself. But self-efficacy is about how you feel about how you perform. In other words, the more you feel good about the things that you do, maybe it's the craft that you work on, maybe it's your job, your performance, the better you feel about your performance, the better you're going to feel about yourself in general. We know that if we can help people raise their self-efficacy, how they feel about how they perform, their self-esteem comes up with it. But we also know that if you just try to raise people's self-esteem, it does nothing for their self-efficacy, which again is the reason why people who are professional manipulators, that's what I would call them, will target people with low self-esteem. Oftentimes, most people believe that could never happen to them. They believe that I would never fall for this or that. And that is exactly the reason why many people do fall for it, because your ego convinces you that you're on solid ground, so this person's compliments must be real, and that's the illusion. And that's why, again, one of the most important things is to be able to step back and ask yourself where your worth really comes from. The more you practice and the more you work to master your craft and your gifts, the better chance you have to get your self-esteem fulfilled from within. The second group of people that are the easiest for professional manipulators to manipulate are those who are attached to what they believe. The more attached you are to what you believe, the easier it is to manipulate you. In other words, if you really believe that you're right about whatever you believe, your perspective is definitive, you really do know all the answers, then it's real easy for people to manipulate you, because all they have to do is agree with you. All they have to do is put down or denigrate people who believe the opposite, and you're bought in. And sometimes you're bought in on such a subconscious level that you're not even aware of it. Hey, listen, you're really smart. All those other people who believe that other thing, they're so stupid. And they keep pounding that in to the point where you start to think this person really knows what they're talking about, because obviously they're right, that you're right about what you believe. This doesn't mean that you can't believe things. And it doesn't mean that you can't even be attached to what you believe. But the difference is this: the more you can practice something called non-attachment, the better chance you'll have to recognize when maybe your ego is getting swept up and needing to be right. The idea of non-attachment doesn't mean that you can't believe things. It just means that you're open, that if in the next moment you get information that directly contradicts what you believe, and there's evidence for it, then you're able to let go of what you believe and take in this new information. This is a challenge for most people. It's much easier said than done. It takes a lot of practice, but it is absolutely possible. Think about it in terms of this. We get really attached to memory. We convince ourselves that our memory is absolutely perfect, and so we get into arguments, even with our most cherished loved ones. No, I'm right. This is exactly how it happened. But neuroscience, brain scans have demonstrated that our memory isn't perfect. And once you know that memory isn't perfect, the only reason why you're clinging to your memory being perfect is ego. And ego is tough. Listen, we all have an ego, and ego is a challenge for all of us. Our egos like to tell us that we're right about anything we think, that we're right about anything we do. And it takes courage to challenge our own egos. But as I say to people, I speak to people all over the world, and when I give talks, I often ask people, how many of you believe that you still have more to learn? And you might not be surprised to know that everywhere I've gone so far, 100% of the people put up their hands. As long as I'm alive, I still have more to learn. So I ask people this follow-up question. If you really believe that you still have more to learn in this life, then why is it the moment someone disagrees with you, or the moment someone challenges your perspective, why is it that you get defensive? If you really believe you have more to learn in this life, why not the moment someone disagrees with you, are you not eager to learn what they might be seeing that you're not seeing? Ego is challenging. It's not it's not easy. But I can promise you that the more you practice non-attachment, again, it's not letting go of your beliefs, it's just remaining open, that new information can help you expand what you see and how you see the world. The more you practice non-attachment, the less chance others have to manipulate you, because you don't need to be right. You don't need to be proven right with what you believe. And you can start to evaluate what others really want from you. Be mindful that your self-esteem comes from within. Be mindful that the more attached you are to needing to be right about whatever you believe, whatever your perspective is, the better chance others have to manipulate you. The more you can stay open to constant learning throughout your entire life, the better chance you have not only to avoid manipulation, but also to become the absolute best version of yourself. Look, I'm going to put a lot more of this information, even about this concept, on my Patreon page. So if you want to learn more about this in depth, I'd love for you to find me over there. But until next time, as always, I wish you much peace.